So he'd created a situation where they had no choice: marry and procreate or lose everything. But the letter's final paragraph contains something more disturbing. I have made arrangements to ensure you choose wisely. My network of correspondence extends throughout the state and beyond. They will be watching, reporting back on your conduct and your choices. Remember always that you are what I made you, and you cannot escape the fundamental truth of your nature, no matter how you might pretend otherwise. The blood that flows through your veins is both your privilege and your prison. Sarah folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. When she looked up at Osgood, her expression betrayed nothing. We understand the terms.
Who serves as executive? I do, along with Mr. Breenedy as co-executive. We're charged with approving any marriage proposals and ensuring the conditions are met. 24 months. Catherine said that gives us until February 1849. Correct. I must say, ladies, your father's provisions are highly irregular. Most attorneys would have counseled against. Our father's mind was entirely his own, Sarah interrupted. We'll comply with his wishes. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have plantation business to attend to. After Osgood left, promising to return in 6 months to assess their progress, the twins remained in the study. They sat in their father's chair, Catherine on the seat, Sarah perched on the armrest, and looked at the walls lined with journals and medical texts, at the ledgers documenting 2 decades of human experimentation disguised as agricultural management.
"We can't find suitable husbands in 24 months, Catherine said finally. He knew that he designed this to fail. "Not if we control every variable," Sarah replied. "Father taught us that much. He believed humans could be bred like livestock, that every aspect of reproduction could be managed and directed. We'll prove him right, just not the way he intended." "What are you suggesting?" Sarah stood and moved to their father's desk, pulling open the bottom drawer where he'd kept his most private records. She withdrew a leather-bound journal and flipped it open to a page marked with a silk ribbon. Father's breeding logs. He documented everything: which combinations produced which results, which bloodlines he considered superior, which individuals he designated for his program. Catherine joined her, reading over her shoulder.
The entries were clinical, dehumanizing, describing people as if they were cattle. Purchased male, approximately 25 years from Williamson Estate. Good teeth, strong back, quick to learn tasks. Letters visible on back indicate prior ownership in Virginia, paired with female number 4. Results: 1 male child, sold 1837. 1 female child, retained for future breeding. He was a monster, Catherine whispered. He was, Sarah agreed. But he was also thorough. And somewhere in these records is the solution to our problem. Over the following weeks, Sarah and Catherine absorbed themselves in their father's documentation. They discovered the full scope of his obsessions: journals spanning 20 years, detailed genealogies, physical measurements, observations on temperament and capability. He treated Bell River as a laboratory, its enslaved population as experimental subjects, all in service of his theories about racial hierarchies and human improvement. But within that documentation, they found something unexpected: evidence of intelligence, resilience, and resistance among the very people their father had tried to reduce to data points.
Before we continue with the story of the Sutton Sisters and the secrets that consumed an entire community, make sure you're subscribed to Echoes of the Past and hit that notification bell. We uncover the darkest corners of American history that textbooks won't touch.
Slaves who taught themselves to read despite prohibitions. Women who'd used herbs and folk knowledge to control their own fertility, quietly subverting the colonel's breeding program. Men who'd sabotaged equipment and slowed productivity in ways that appeared accidental. Their father had noted these deficiencies without recognizing them as acts of rebellion. One name appeared repeatedly in the later journals, always with annotations of frustration: Ruth, their mother. The colonel had purchased her expecting a compliant bearer of children for his experiments. Instead, he'd found a woman who resisted him in subtle, persistent ways, teaching her daughters to read when he was away, whispering to them about the life she'd known before slavery, planting seeds of doubt about his absolute authority. She tried to protect us, Catherine said, tracing her finger over their mother's name in the ledger. Even when she couldn't save herself. Then we owe her more than survival, Sarah replied. We owe her victory. But victory required resources, time, and one more element they didn't yet possess. A man they could control completely, whose presence would satisfy the letter of their father's will while violating its spirit entirely. The solution arrived in late April, though they didn't recognize it immediately.
The spring auction in Haynesville drew sellers and buyers from across central Alabama, transforming the courthouse square into a marketplace of human misery. Enslaved people stood on a raised platform while white men examined them like livestock, checking teeth and muscle tone, asking invasive questions about work history and health. The air smelled of dust and sweat and fear. Sarah and Catherine attended with Pritchett, ostensibly to purchase additional field hands for the expanded acreage they planned to cultivate. They wore black veils, still in mourning, which gave them anonymity in the crowd and allowed them to observe without being observed too closely. The morning sales proceeded predictably. Field workers going to plantation owners, domestic slaves to town families, children torn from parents and sold to different buyers. Then, shortly before noon, something unusual appeared on the auction block. "Next lot," the auctioneer called. "Property of the Granville estate, recently deceased. One male, age approximately 28, name of Marcus. Got his letters, can figure, worked as a house servant and tutor to the Granville children. No history of rebellion, no attempts to run. Starting bid, $1,000. Marcus stood on the platform with straight posture and level gaze, neither defiant nor submissive. He wore clean but worn clothing, and his hands, the hands of someone who worked with ledgers rather than cotton, showed no calluses. His skin was several shades lighter than most of the people sold that morning, suggesting mixed ancestry. But what caught Sarah's attention was something else entirely. The way he scanned the crowd, not with the defeated resignation she expected, but with calculation, as if he was evaluating potential buyers just as they evaluated him. "Educated slaves are risk," someone in the crowd called out. "Gets ideas above his station. Perfect for a household that needs bookkeeping done." The auctioneer counted. "How many of you can balance your own accounts? Here's a man who can do it for you. Now, do I hear 1,000? The bidding opened slowly. Most planters didn't want an educated male slave. Too much potential for trouble, for reading abolitionist newspapers, for forging travel passes. But a few town merchants showed interest, seeing value in someone who could manage their stores or handle correspondence. Sarah leaned close to Pritchett. "Bid, Miss Sarah. We don't need bid." Pritchett raised his hand. 1,000. 1,200, countered a merchant from Montgomery. 1,300, Pritchett called. The bidding climbed to 1,600 before the Montgomery merchant dropped out.
Marcus was delivered to Bell River 3 days later, walking the 8 miles from Hanville with his few possessions in a cloth bag. Pritchett met him at the plantation entrance and led him directly to the main house, where Sarah and Catherine waited in the study. "You can read and write," Sarah said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am." Marcus's voice was educated, careful, revealing nothing of what he might be thinking. "You tutored the Granville children. What did you teach them?" "Reading, writing, arithmetic, some geography and history, whatever their father requested." Catherine circled him slowly, appraising. The Granvilles were known abolitionists, Quakers, I believe. They allowed their slaves to be educated. For the first time, something flickered in Marcus's eyes, weariness perhaps, or recognition that this conversation was more complicated than it appeared. Mr. Granville believed all people possessed souls and minds worthy of development. "Ma'am." "And you?" Sarah asked. "What do you believe?" "I believe I'm standing in front of 2 women who paid too much for me and who clearly have something specific in mind beyond field labor." The twins exchanged glances. Their father had taught them to view enslaved people as objects, incapable of analysis or autonomous thought. Marcus had just demonstrated both within 30 seconds. "We have an unusual situation," Sarah said carefully.
Before we continue, the next chapter of this story is already live and waiting for you in our playlist. If you want to know what happened next, who survived, and what secrets were still buried in the ashes, go to the Echoes of the Past playlist now. The next part is ready for you immediately. Subscribe, follow the playlist, and continue the journey into history's darkest truths.